Welcome to our Forms Logic live webinar, Precision at Scale, Centralizing Operations while Reducing Errors. I'm Christy Harner, and I'll be hosting today's webinar, as well as checking in on any questions that arise during the conversation to ensure that our team can answer your questions at the end of our presentation. With that in mind, please take a look at the bottom of your Zoom screen for the Q&A icon, where you can ask questions at any point, and I will either ask them out loud to our team to answer live, or for any complex, personalized questions, we'll respond to you personally after the webinar. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our speakers today are two of Forms Logic's best and brightest, Jennifer Sauter, the Executive Vice President of Onboarding, and Rick Burgess, the CEO and founder of Forms Logic, who will be joining us very shortly. Today, we're going to be talking about Forms Logic, a little background on the company and what we've been bringing to the market, the solutions that we have, and we'll be tackling the main challenges that people face when trying to process business efficiently and timely. We'll then talk through the implementation of our Navigator solution. We'll share some stories from the field and help to clarify how Forms Logic works for advisors. And then again, as I mentioned, at the end, we'll have a Q&A to answer all of your questions. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jen to start to introduce Forms Logic to us and help you get to know more about the company. Jen, take it away.
Thank you, Christy. So I just wanted to take welcome everybody and thank you for making time to learn more about our system. In a nutshell, Forms Logic is a one source data stop. We like to say that we're actually a data company with a forms problem. And as the slide says, we take that data and we transform it, we fill it into documents, we store it for you. And we help you along the way from advisors onboarding, account opening, reviewing work, and then all of the compliance needs behind it, auditing, Reg BI, all of those things. When people come to me as the Executive Vice President of Onboarding, the first thing is, what are we solving for, right? Front office, back office, client experience, all of those things we can satisfy, but we really just usually want to find out what the true need is. More often than not, we need a centralized system. What does that mean to other people? It means a little different to everybody. Some people, it's a single source, right? We want everything in one place. We want our advisors, we want our back office, our front office, our assistants using one place. Often there's people, using different technologies for different sources. We have, in an independent situation, if you have independent advisors, you may have 6 different CRMs that are holding data at their offices, not within your organization, different locations, different ways of filling out paperwork, and also different ways of submitting paperwork, whether it's email, fax, even snail mail. There's people out there that will still prefer to throw the forms and have the US Post deliver it, so they want to get that integrated. The other thing could be, the burden of all of that on the back office. Who is actually going to be taking that information and, making it into document storage, ocular storage, all those things that you need to do to be compliant. Right. We also work with integrations, right? So there's many different sources. Maybe you have some proprietary CRMs, maybe you have a proprietary storage system, and everybody wants one thing that moves seamlessly. And that's where we come in. We will work with you to combine your business's requirement with one source of technology, right? That one source is to create the workflows, create the data, monitor all of that, as well as retain the data. And we do this with basically in creating, that can be in a couple different definitions. One could be not just creating the paperwork, but creating the workflows. How does your business work? What workflows do you need? We will work with you to customize all of that. And then you can provide a unified place for your advisors to go. And you know what? It makes it easier to answer questions, follow through, and follow up, right? Give them a unified place on how to enter data. So training gets reduced. You're not telling somebody, well, if you're going to this system, do it here. If you're using this system, you're going here. These are the steps you're going to take. But within that, we do offer flexibility. You have advisors that still like to fill out a PDF online, they can do that. What you're seeing here is what we call our data view. That allows basically what that does, it takes the noise out of the form and you're just answering the questions. That's all you have to do. So within the system and giving them a centralized process, we're also giving them flexibility and options to help them. Monitor, this means both sides of the house too. When we talk about a centralized process, having one place to go to see where the workflow is, both the front office and the back office, is very helpful, right? An advisor wants to know what's taking so long to open an account. They can go to the same place that the back office go to and see where it is in the system, how long it's going to take, and bug the people they need to bug in order for the business to go forward. And then retain. It's a centralized place to retain up-to-date vendor documents, have an up-to-date company library, as well as maintain a gold standard for your data. Your data is being entered into our system through the forms and it's being saved. From there, it gets used again. Our goal, enter once, use many. The other part of the retain is what happens afterwards, right? The completed documents, and not only the completed data, but the completed documents. What happens if there's an ACAT transfer and it's not going through? You can go into the system. If it was fax from our system, you can pull the fax and call American Funds and say, hey, my transfer didn't go through. I have, the confirmation what's going on. Or you can even just go to pull those documents to resend. And that's kind of, in the nutshell, the centralized process and some of the highlights of using a centralized process and using our technology for that. And with that, I'd like to introduce Rick Burgess. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like
Amazing once who
to
wants to
pop in
update
and
as you're logging in.
add anything, that'd be great.
No, you did it. You do it well. The centralized process. I've been listening long enough to know you kind of hit everything. The one thing that most people seem to kind of forget is there is no one-shot wonder out there. Even us, right? We take things from clients and we take things from best practices and we put them together. This is a living, breathing thing. As a CRM will change, we have to change. But one change with us will ripple through every one of our clients, right? So the difference is we're bringing scalability to these integrations that's not there typically with a one-on-one, cobble it together by yourself. So this is where I come in again. All the small errors we have are detrimental to efficiency. You saw some things in the last couple of slides, and Jen was talking about them. But what do we do to minimize these little nuanced errors that always show up? The great way to say that is your biggest liability sometimes is maybe your biggest producer. If they're giving you the most NIGOs and the most problems. But I'll let Jen go through sort of how we get a handle on those nuanced errors.
So what are the biggest issues after needing a centralized location? We want more efficiencies, and the biggest way to become more efficient is to reduce NIGOs. And we do that when we work with onboarding. We do that in a number of ways. First, by ensuring requirements through correct forms and completed requirements. And we actually do this in a couple different ways. We build guardrails in a number of different ways. One could be, making sure we have what we call the correct qualifying questions. So, is it a rollover? Are there going to be options? All of these could change the trajectory of the workflow, right? Or the paperwork that's needed, or the questions that need to be answered. So we'll work with you to understand how your business works in those situations to make sure that the correct paperwork is there and the questions are going to get answered. Another way we do this is through required forms. So you can mandate based upon a certain situation, whether it's a product type, what forms are going to be needed. The other thing we use in our system to ensure that the correct forms are going to be there are we have templates. And these are really unique because they are really owned by you guys. You and the advisor get to build them. So maybe you have an advisor who just does retirement planning, maybe has an in at the big company down the road, and they're the ones that get referred to whenever anybody's retiring. So it's always rollovers. It's always these three buckets, these three companies. They can set up templates and with one click have the most up-to-date forms there, put in just a couple of variables and be rolling to get the client data on that. The other thing we do is data retention, right? As I said earlier, enter one, feed many. So income, We have income from the last, for that client from the last account, it's going to feed over. We don't have to, we won't miss that question. We won't miss that data point. As well as the compliance requirements, like I talked earlier, maybe it's options. Do you have a certain options principal that needs to see it? If it goes to the wrong principal and they sign off on it, is that going to, is that going to be a problem come down audit time? Or is there going to be NIGOs that are going to come through because it went to the wrong person? Those are kinds of the things that I will work with you and my team will work with you to ensure we understand your business and your practice to be able to move forward. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Rick?
The one thing we talked about on the compliance side is the fact that, we have compliance themes running through our entire platform. Like we will keep track of your licensing and we won't let you open things that you're not supposed to open. We won't let you submit things if you're on supervision, heightened supervision. There's lots of nuances that we can't cover everything, but these are very big concepts so that if something is going on at your firm, but one or two individuals, we can accommodate that without it having be a big deal and not impact your entire business flows.
Yeah, it's really nice that we can take it down to an advisor level if we need to for certain compliance aspects.
Right. We need the unified way to review and retain everything. You'll see this theory of retain and documentation through our entire presentation, probably because every client wants it and mentions it and talks about it. Very few know exactly what to do with all the data once they get the data, which is another part of this whole conversation. But Jen's going to go through some unified ways that the workflow, how it reviews, how it goes through every part of your business and how it touches everything. And you're going to see Jen smile when I say this. Is the one thing I constantly find intriguing is I ask a client, can you tell me what happens in every work order in your background and what you do? And most of them look around and say, yeah, I have an idea. An idea can't be coded. You have to tell me exactly what it is. That's where Jen and her team very nuanced to bring that all out. So Jen, I'll let you kind of go through this section.
Yeah, so I mean, we are not only, a single source for advisors to start the business, it's a single source for the back office, right? You don't have, if you're an OSJ structure, you don't have 4 different people processing business 4 different ways, accepting all of that. So what we do is we work with you, again, what Rick said. Our team will take every product type, everything. How do you process this? What happens when this happens? All those kinds of questions. And we'll create what we call customized workflows. And what you're looking at in that picture is what we call deal tracks. I lovingly call it the paperwork journey, right? Where is the paperwork along the trail? The nice thing about this is it's one source, right? So one source for supervision. What does that mean? It means everybody's seeing it the same. Everybody's seeing it at the same time. I, as a principal, I can go in and I can pull it. If I have something that's, if I request for more information, I just can't quite approve this. It's all within the system, right? So I can do a request for more information. It will go back to the advisor. They'll be able to justify the trade or to add the missing form or whatever needs to be taken care of and send it back. But then the nice thing about it is being in one place. If I, as a principal, am not there the next day, somebody can jump in, see the notes, what's going on, and go ahead and approve it. You don't have to wait for that one person to come back. The other nice thing about that is when it is customizable, we have a lot of people. The very first meeting, when we first start talking about workflows, is I hear review, review, review. I want to review the paperwork before signature. I want to review the paperwork before approval. I want to review the paperwork after all of these different things. And we'll put those in and we'll say, okay, well, if that's the way you do it now, that's great. And what we often find is that through the process, they'll go, oh, wait a minute, because we can do this, maybe we don't need to touch it that time. And a lot of times we'll reduce the amount of time from the time the advisor hits the send for e-sign button through to approval and process. We can reduce it because it's going to be touched less. It's signature approval processing, and you're good to go. So that does happen quite frequently. And our system is flexible enough, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but if you want to remove that one system, that one step, yeah, we can do that. A lot of times we'll build and then they'll play and then we'll make some changes, and that's not a problem with it when it comes to onboarding.
No, I would only say one thing, and you say it differently than I do sometimes. And Fred, our partner, always says, client doesn't know what they want till they see what they don't want. So we're not in the habit of delivering final things in the first shot you see it. Everything is iterative in our world. So from the moment you start, you see the box that it starts with, and then you see everything you requested being built in real time, so that nothing is shocking to you when it gets to the end. So you see the process, and you can see the holes if there is any, as you didn't think it would work that way. You wanted it to work a different way. Those are times to catch it and tell us.
Exactly. And to the point, I was talking with a client last week and I'm like, hey, I've got a webinar coming up. Can I share this? And she's like, sure. But we have a client that they basically went from integrating a paper and email system, right? And it was going to different people and to our system. And she was like, our back office loves Forms Logic because it has made, because of the guardrails, the guardrails that they've built in, it's made their job so much easier to review and approve paperwork because they're not missing forms, they're not missing questions. She even went to say, and it's not in here, but it no longer allows them to skirt around some of the things that they used to. And the advisors are, sometimes they don't like that, but it's holding them accountable. And then to the other side of that, the advisors are seeing how much quicker things are getting processed and accounts are getting open and funded, which is always better for their end client.
So we can't track every step for auditing. We hear this a lot. When you have things going through emails and 15 different ways and they fax things in, there's no centralized place. You have to physically type things in to track stuff. Jen's going to go over a little bit more, but in the back of your mind, think of, and I'll come back after it, and the data in between the data is my favorite comment, but I'll let Jen go through sort of how we track and what we do. And then I'll come back after.
So one thing that our system does, and what this picture is depicting, is every click of the system. We know who clicked, what they changed, and when they did it. Why is this important? Well, for example, it could give you the time that it takes to go from the time something was submitted to the some time that something was approved, if you need to look at that. Auditing purposes, if that window is too short too, that they may not be, the person approving may not be looking at the paperwork, right? So there's guardrails there, right? Is it taking too long or is it not taking long enough? So those kinds of things. Or, hey, I did not change this. Somebody went in and changed my form or changed something. Guess what? We can go in and we can look, and you have the ability to do that as well. So with that, we're tracking every step, very important. Full documentation. What does that mean when we talk about being audit preparedness and tracking? We save everything, your documents are saved, they're stored, you can go back and get them. So when the auditor walks in and says, I need all the paperwork that you used to open up this account, you can go into our system and pull it. We'll store it forever. And you own those, right? The one thing we have yet to mention is that you own the data, you own the forms, it's all you. You're not getting in stuff, you're not pulling stuff from Schwab or from DST or from all different systems to try to get your client data. It's all here in one place. To that point though, too, you may want to have your document storage someplace else. You may want to have an integrated data. Maybe you have a proprietary CRM that you want to feed. You've spent countless hours and time building it, then you want to continue using it. That's not a problem. We can be the conduit to that. We have clients that we pull from their proprietary CRM. We do everything that we do, and then we send everything back over to their CRM. We will work with you to make sure that your processes and your integrations run seamlessly within our system as well. And Rick, would you like to add anything?
I think you hit most of it, but the one thing that we talk about a lot internally is kind of building these report cards or scorecards by advisor and even by employee. Think of very much Big Brother world of knowing how fast from a submission to an approval, how fast from a queue to a queue, we can kind of track those things. So we can stack rank people in your back office to tell you who's better at processing business or who's the advisor better at processing NIGO free work. So these are things we're kicking around as we get bigger because now we have enough data to sort of rank people amongst their peers. It is very eye-opening when you start putting that data together and seeing how advisors are ranking and assistants and everybody else. So more to come on that.
Right. Is it the 2080 rule, right?
28, 95.5 some cases. So why forms logic? Being the person that started this company with my partner, there's a multitude of reasons that aren't listed here. But for consistency of our messaging and everything, I can tell you that communication is number one for us. We're constantly talking to our clients. We got here because our clients asked us to build something, and they kept asking us to build things. So we didn't build it and hope somebody would use it. We started with a client, and they told us what to build, and we've been building it ever since. Integrations is now a big part of things. So integrations to many CRMs, to many e-sign vendors, to many third-party vendors, right? We're starting to get more and more and more into the financial planning and commissions system integrations. And as people are being bought, moving those around, those are all very, very in motion things, right? They never stagnate. Single data entry is our lifeblood. We've been doing it since the day we started. The flexibility. We built this to be a commercial modular thing. So if you don't want a piece, we can unplug a piece. We don't have to recode you. We have to recode that connection. So it gives us the ability to move things around very, very efficiently. And, from our standpoint, the front and the back office, and there's an and there, which we're building in more and more, which is the client integration to touch every facet of who can touch the data, what they can do, and what they can not do, right? So these are constantly moving targets as the world lets us do more, as technology lets us do more, and as we, quite frankly, build more and cooler things and let our clients tell us, well, you got it just right, fix this, right? It's great when your clients yell at you and say, you got it mostly right, just change a little bit. That's about what I would say on why formed logic. Jen, head of implementation with her and her team.
Yeah.
I'd love to turn it back over to you. So you don't
Okay,
let
no
me
problem.
talk about this.
So how does this work, right? In implementation, what is the plan? What's the process? Well, we really kind of have three phases that we call them, right? I'll be honest, they do overlap, and there's some, we're not okay, 1, 2, 3. It's okay, we've done a little bit of this and we keep moving. But if we want to talk about phase one, we can move on to the next slide. And this is really, and I've talked a lot about this. This is really discover and design. And this is where it can be one of the longer processes because we do everything. We're going to look at your forms. We're going to talk to you, like you said, about every aspect of your business. By the time I'm done with the onboarding, I'll know your business just as well as you will. And just a little background, I come from that world and I've sat in a lot of chairs. I've been a compliance officer, I've been in back office, I've been an advisor. So I know the pain and I know the circumstances in which you're asking these questions, right? So we bring that to the onboarding experience. And I almost start bonding with, the onboarding team over there and, we get down and we start building the workflows. And that's the biggest portion of this is let's build these workflows. Let's see how your business runs. And then when we get to the building and the customization, right? This is when our clients kind of get their hands dirty and they start getting into the system. We start delivering on those requirements, go in and test them, go in and feel around. And as we said, Before, you know, you don't know what you want until you see it. So, you know, we make changes and we make customizations, and it really does cater to your business and your business needs. And it's when they get to start seeing it, I really love it when the clients start seeing it and they, you know, the light bulb is like, oh, I can do this with this, or I can do that with that. And you're like, yeah, you know what? You can create required forms or required fields, you know, and if you do required fields, guess what? Client can't sign until all those questions are answered. That will be the one way that you can ensure everything gets signed, those kinds of things. From there, we also then do training, you know, the next step is testing, training, and implementation, right? We will work with you to create a training plan. We will work with you and the onboarding team on one-on-one for training. We're not going to just be like, you know, here, go test, go train. And implementation. How are you going to roll that out? How do you want to roll it out? We will work with you and come up with the best practices for you and your organization. Are we training the trainer? Are we training the field? We need to know those kinds of things, and we'll move forward as needed. This process, you know, timeline, right? Generally takes, give or take, maybe about 4 to 6 months. It's not a overnight, just, hey, give me these things and I'm off and running. It does take time. It takes time to learn your business. It takes time to develop for you guys to really understand what you need and build it and to get it rolling. But after implementation, you know, a lot of people feel like, okay, well, what happens next? And after that, it's continued support. It is support and attention. During the onboarding process, there'll be a little period in which you'll get the attention of 2 team members, well, 3, because you'll also be working with our forms manager throughout the process. But you'll get an identified support manager. What does that mean? You actually have a person that you can call, you can email, you can talk to, who will help you. You will continue weekly meetings as needed to develop what you need and be there for any needs you might need, training, support issues, future requirements, things like that. Our team of engineers. This is the first time we've really kind of talked about it. You know, Fred, who Rick has mentioned, his partner Fred is he's the guy that designed the chassis, if you will. But since then, we've also hired on a bunch of different engineers that are experts in their field, what they do, whether it's data, whether it's our specific code, whether it's, you know, our security. These people have come together to build a product that you know is evolving, right? As Rick said, we are constantly working with our engineers, and that's the nice part about this, is that I can talk to the engineers, our support manager can talk to the engineers. We're not in silos. We always are constantly, we have our communication systems that we're constantly communicating with, meetings weekly, if not every other, almost daily with some of them, to make sure we're working through the processes that we need to improve the product and make sure that all the changes that are required or the new features are working well. Which also leads me then to the ease of system changes. One thing about our company is that we do understand that there has to be people, you know, I don't know what I know until I use it. So maybe I want to change it, or maybe I want to grow. Maybe I want to add a workflow. We have people that will use our system for about a year and then say, you know what, how about this? And they come up with advertising workflow. We have talking to somebody right now about using our system for onboarding their reps and registration and licensing, those kinds of workflows. Our system's flexible enough that as long as it requires paperwork, we can help you, right? And that's kind of the crux of it. And we can do it in a manner that's going to be quicker and less expensive than some of the other people in our industry. Case study. Okay, another one of my clients. I've been working with this client for, gosh, Rick, 2 years now. We've been working with these people, maybe even longer. World Investments. They came in to
They
our
don't look like they
system.
do when they started, for sure.
They don't. They came in wanting to use our system for their offices, and they went through and they started purchasing. They doubled their workflow force. They bought different businesses, and we worked through that with them. What did we do? We actually were running 2 different offices and 2 different processes in our system to accommodate some of the new offices that they were bringing in, because They were like, the way they do it versus the way we do it is so different. So we were able to accommodate both of those and then kind of make slow changes to meld them. And actually by the end of this year, they'll have one system that they're working off of, but what this allowed them to do was pick and choose what processes and what ways and what forms work best for the company as a whole. And we're able to accommodate them for that.
Does this work for advisors? Advisors are a very finicky bunch. And, I love advisors to death because they give me a reason to live every day. Meaning they always find a way to screw something up that I got to recode to fix. It would be nice and easy to say, hey, everybody does it the same way, but that's not how advisors work. Anybody that's gone to a conference has a sea of white hair, right? There's not a lot of youth in there. So youthful people can do it on their phone. Like we are a cloud-based system. So you could do all of this off of your phone, right? Or we get some of the people that love pen and paper, and we can still process pen and paper through our system because as soon as you upload something, we know it's a physical piece of paper to process differently than e-signing. But consistency in how you onboard things and how you hold advisors accountable. It doesn't matter if you did it by an e-sign or a wet sign. I need to know where that paperwork is and how it's moving through. So accountability is a big deal, right? Defining that workflow on the front end, this is a hard thing to understand is people will physically fill out forms. There's still physical things that have to be stamped and uploaded and processed through. So we still have the ability to process them side by side in the same workflows. And the one thing we have now is we have a breadth of clients that we have, what's the best practices across all of our client bases. And that's the one thing that does make us very unique is the fact that one little advisor at an RIA that tells us this is what I do. We've coded that before and it's got adopted by our biggest BDs as, hey, that's a cool process. I didn't think of it that way. So, we build things as almost like a community. Every time we onboard something, everybody has the option to use it, right? So that's the difference with us is you're not paying us for an upgrade that somebody built new that you didn't have last year. It's something that we can integrate and launch for you and try it and test it. If you don't like it, turn it back off. This is something that's very unique with us versus other people. So advisors tend to like the fact that they can still do it their way.
All right, Jennifer, Rick, that was great. Okay, so we're gonna do some Q&A now. Throughout the presentation, we did receive a handful of really good questions. So I'll start to ask them. Some of them maybe somewhat have been answered during the conversation. So answer if there's additional information you want to add to it. But let me get started. So the first question was, are you working directly with Schwab and/or Fidelity's compliance and legal departments to get approval to be an integral part of their straight-through processing / digital onboarding? And if so, what is the status and timeline?
I can take that one, Jen.
Hmm.
Schwab, we've been a partner for a long, long time doing straight through processing. That's mostly through their DIY DocuSign. They did just come out with an API that we were approved to play in. It's not quite ready for us yet because it still moves. It still is being adopted and changed. So we're watching it to make sure that once it's stable, we'll be adopting it. But you can process Schwab right now. Fidelity, we've already been approved. We're already going through the onboarding right now and building the straight through processing. So that is already in place. I think it's Q1, Jen, for full integration.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point. Yep.
Just because I don't know if anyone's ever done it, but it's a big, arduous process because every single piece of every form, every single little thing is part of that API. So it's very technical. But we
Yeah.
are
They have a
very much
spreadsheet
bound.
with like 2,000 lines of code to match up. I know I've seen it. Had to
Yeah.
help with it.
And
But
then
yeah.
on Pershing, we are part of that Wove project. Wove is their internal API rewrite. So we were told a couple times now that you can write it right now, or you can wait 2 months, 3 months until it's rewritten, and then we don't have to rewrite it again. So we've waited. Um, we also have straight through processing, or what accounts for straight through processing at Axos and a couple other places, but mostly a couple alts like CMB, places like that. But we are constantly building the pipes for straight through processing. And then Jen can tell you more, but we have literally dozens and dozens and dozens of traditional products that are the American Fundses of the world, that we have embedded faxes, which can you believe that is still a thing? But that's how we get it to them, and that's how they take it. They will not take e-sign.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Let's see, another one. What is the average time? I know you mentioned this a little bit, but what is the average time to value for implementation, and how soon can a client see positive results?
That's a great question. So I think it depends upon the client, right? Where are you coming from and what is is your current process? The onboarding process takes, like I said, 4 to 6 months. So you could be that long, it's not until implementation. But I think what will happen is the people that are part of the onboarding process, you usually generally that's the back office, right? We always recommend have somebody from compliance, have somebody from operations, have somebody that, if you want to have an advisor or an assistant, somebody from the front side of the business on there, that's always great to have. Those people get to see it beforehand and they get to start talking it up, and that makes people very excited about what's to come. So it probably builds, with starting with the onboarding team, and that can be as little as a couple months. I really don't have a concrete number for you or a timeline on that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. Do you have e-sign capabilities, and what are the fees?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we e-sign, we have box sign. Our probably our biggest user is DocuSign and SignX. And they're all different based upon usability. DocuSign is a per envelope charge, and we just kind of charge you what we pay. And I don't know what that number is right now, because you'd work with the sales team on that. But it's probably less than you're paying because we buy more envelopes than you guys do. And then SignX is a per user fee, a monthly per user fee. I think it's $10 per user. And you're only charged if it's used.
All right. And then a follow-up to the other question, the original question. What is your competitive advantage or moat compared to Precise FP and Dispatch?
Those are very specific questions, very specific vendors. So Precise FP is, think of them as a client intake form. It's a way to gather information. We have something like Precise FP, but there's a very big difference here. Precise FP is amazing. It's pretty. It's gorgeous. It does a great job. But it's very limited to what it can do. In fact, in the scope of things, in the matter that we do tens of thousands of forms and we collect data on all of it, right? So we can change you into a place to gather data on a very specific form or data set, right? Which in a Precise FP world, you got to go build that. So we can do it on the fly in real time, and Precise FP is more of a structured way to do it. Precise FP is also owned by our biggest competitor. So we've tried to integrate with them a few times, and I don't know why they don't want it to be integrated. And what was the other one? Dispatch. Dispatch is a very good firm. We like them a lot. They have some challenges with their straight-through processing and integrations right now. And I love them to death, though. They're a great firm. I don't want to detract anything from them. But again, they don't touch the breadth of what we do, and they don't do the integrations through compliance and the back office the way we do. But again, great firm, and there's about half a dozen other ones out there that we know about, and they're all out there. They all do a great job.
Thanks. All right. How do you keep track of the forms to make sure you have the most recent forms? Maybe Jen.
Jen, you want me to take that one?
Sure, he's your best friend.
We have a very, very long relationship with a firm called Quick, Quik. Rich Walker is the owner of that. We've known Rich for nearly a decade. Rich has sort of come to the top of the warehouse of forms, right? Meaning that he has direct relationships with almost every carrier vendor you're going to want. What's interesting though is we can take in forms that he can't take in, and we can do it on our own side in our own way. So from our standpoint, if you're in the middle of a transaction and a form changes, we will slide that form in behind the scenes, And when you go to actually submit it, you're submitting the newest form, right? So from our standpoint, we're more of a data company than a forms company. So we're manipulating the data behind the scenes, and the forms is just an expression of how that data comes out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a question around uploading documents. Can you upload documents such as a trust agreement or ADV2A or ADV2B?
Yeah. Actually, that's a great question because it's part of, coming into compliance, you need to have certain disclosures and everything, and you can have them. So within the onboarding process, you're going to build a company library. So your ADV 2As, your privacy policies, all those can be in the library, and we can set them to automatically pull. The 2Bs, things like that are individual to the rep. Those actually, every user has an eVault. Those would live there, and we have already coded to pull those as well. So yes. And then supporting documents for, like trust document or divorce decree or something like that. Yeah, easily it goes through, and then definitely can upload it. And the unique thing about that is you do that prior to sending it to the e-sign vendor. So you can determine whether or not that's going to go in the envelope or not. And if it doesn't, it still stays with the workflow, so the compliance team can still see it. If you do, the other unique thing about being able to upload outside documents, not only, what Rick was saying, you can upload, you can add different vendor documents. You can add, maybe you have a letter of instruction that you need to get signed. So things that are not unique, or things that are not unique to the system that you need, you can do that. And then you're able to edit and fix the document at the e-sign vendor, add signatures there. And then those also will come back e-signed and stay within the workflow.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're almost out of time. I've got a couple questions left. Can you track NIGO improvements?
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, that comes through when we were talking about the tracking.
Right.
Right? You can see that. You can see how many NIGOs we do have. We have NIGO reports, right? You can run that every week. How many NIGOs did I get this week? Who are they? When they, what they happened? Most definitely.
All right, one more just popped up. How is our data stored at rest and encrypted in transit? Who has access to our data? What cloud provider are you using? We get some details, but
Wow.
we can answer offline too if we want to.
That's
No,
you,
no,
right?
we can answer a lot of that.
Okay.
We actually are SOC 2 report recipients, I guess, so we have our SOC 2 report. So which means we've gone through this entire process already. We've also gone through it with Schwab, Fidelity, Pershing, Access, all of these people. So our everything's encrypted. So whoever asked that question, please follow up with us individually, and I'll put you in touch with our compliance, security officer, and he can walk you through, Microsoft Azure and its REST is secured some way, and they talk about things that are well over my head. But I know we're FIPS 140, which is security for the U.S. government from a previous client. So we got a lot of things that you just won't find normally.
Great. I'm going to move us to our last slide, but Rick, any upcoming innovations that you want to give us a sneak peek on?
Well, the one thing that came up was the precise FP question. We get that a lot because a lot of advisors are pushing things towards their clients to fill out stuff. We have a few different vendors right now we're evaluating on the AI side of things to actually convert our front end to an AI intake model. So it'll actually be intelligent in what it's asking, how it's asking, and that will actually feed into the advisors portals as well. I know Zox is one of the ones we really like right now and we're dealing with, but there's a few others. But that's probably the largest integration we have, or innovation we have coming. And then there's a second one, which is we're onboarding a reports back engine that basically gives you the ability to take the 1.9 million unique characteristics on forms we hold and be able to run reports anything versus anything anytime you want. Which would be something that and have it integrated into the system. So that's a very, very large integration coming. But it overshadows running a report. It's just amazing what it does. So those are the two big ones that I would say are coming.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, I do think that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for everyone for attending the webinar on the Navigator solution. We will be sending a link to this video in an email in just a few days, so please check your inbox for information from us and those materials. Rick, Jen, any last words you want to say real quick before we end?
Thanks
Thank you
for coming,
helping,
everybody.
Christy.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. Take care and have a great rest of your day.